Welcome everyone to our webinar. This is part of a series of webinars put together by Ascend.io. Today's session is about how automation delivers more business value. Before we get to our guests today, just a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, the session is being recorded. We will be sharing the recordings afterwards, so you can access the material later. And also we do have a Q&A feature in the webinar today, so feel free to put in your questions anytime. We have a Q&A session at the end, so we'll get to your questions at the end of our presentation. Great. So let's get started. I am Michael Lepich. I head up alliances worldwide for Ascend.io. And in those alliances, one of our key partners in the APAC region is XSY, based in New Zealand. So I'm really glad to invite Cyrus and Jared.
Thanks, Michael. It's awesome to be here, and it's great to contribute to the series and work with you guys. So yeah, I'm Cyrus Facciano, one of the directors at XSY. We've been at this for a few years now, and really excited to have a chat with you and the people that have joined us.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jared Languth, the other director here at XSY. Just echo Cyrus's sentiments. It's exciting using the product. Happy to here to share our experience.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about XSY. Who are you and what kind of problems do you tackle?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, I mean, we call ourselves a management consultancy for the digital age, and that's kind of because we found that looking out at the market that there was either your traditional management consultancies that sort of created these giant slide decks, or there were these kind of digital agencies that did design work, or there were these technology kind of agencies that just the technology. But there wasn't really an agency that gave you the full portfolio of needs that we believe are required to create a business that's fit for the future. So big problems that we see in the market that we really want to tackle with these capabilities are things like siloed teams, so people working in silos, lots of duplication of effort, or effort that's working at cross purposes where people are working towards different measurements or different goals that are at odds with one another, enormous inefficiencies through manual tasking and the things that I've mentioned before, lack of meaningful measurement to help organizations know that they're moving towards their goals. And in particular, and germane to the topic of this discussion, is within analytics and data teams, silos of capabilities, working with nowhere near enough collaboration between the disciplines of those teams, and definitely nowhere near enough engagement and collaboration with the benefactors of their work, ergo the business users and the business line itself. So we thought that there was a gap that needed filling around, and the reason why customers enjoy working with us is because we bring all those things together. And as we say on our website, we help business leaders be more awesome by bringing those things together, using design to bring people together to align on goals and be unified in their purpose, as well as things like agile to create highly collaborative, highly transparent, highly cohesive teams that deliver at pace, as well as using cutting edge technologies like Ascend that bring automation to bear in such a way that it enables teams to spend more time focusing on value and less time on spinning plates and keeping the infrastructure going, which in our view is very much a last century situation.
And that's a really good introduction, I think, to some of the key problems that we see kind of across the board with our Ascend customers. As a vendor and as a technology provider, we're here to solve a pretty technical problem, but the kind of problems you're talking about are really end up driving the business. So glad you guys are out there, and that's actually one of the reasons we really wanted to partner with you, and the kind of problems that you're solving for our customers down under, and for your customers, really. Maybe give us a little bit of a background on how you engage with customers. How do you, start projects? Who do you work with? Give us a thumbprint of what the projects look like.
Yeah, I mean, XSY itself has been concentrated on strategy and digital strategy and data strategy for many, many years. The big shift over the last several years has been in the teams that we've been bringing to bear to deliver on those strategic goals, both from a business context, a data context, and the technology context that goes with it. So a lot of what we've been doing recently is really plain and simple. It's helping organizations align on their goals. So what are they? What are the measurements that represent progress towards those goals, and agreeing what those are, and then going through a very iterative, agile process to deliver those metrics in a way that users can understand and use easily. And in doing so, changing how organizations are working so that they're more aligned and centered on those metrics. And so far, so good. Like we've had a lot of great outcomes with clients, long-term relationships. We're getting lots of good feedback, lots of good repeat work, which is always a good sign, that people want us to stick around, and lots of, references and things like that, which is great. And our growth is also tantamount to our success. So it's been an exciting few years, and I'm looking forward to the next.
Yeah, awesome. Jared, tell us a little bit about what you encounter as you get called in or as you start a project. What are some of the anti-patterns that you see there?
Yeah, from the business side, two sides to us: the business side and the technical side. So the business side can be a plethora of KPIs they're trying to pay attention to and don't understand how it all fits together. It could be the business has, as most businesses do, a really demanding request cycle, and every week they're demanding something new and something new and something new, and that builds up this backlog for the DNA teams to try and get through. So that can be the problem. Dashboards can be made in a hurry because of that reason. So as we try to keep up with the pace, we're trying to do more and more, and that means we put less time into the value we're delivering and more into the getting it out the door. So that can be a pattern of just way too many reports, things where data is described in more than one dashboard, but slightly differently. You might have a data engineer making something up because they've got to get through pace. You might have not many data quality tests in there because they're going to go at pace and they haven't got the time to stop. Documentation will be light. And that just snowballs into support now becomes really hard. So if we have lots of things and we've done them fast and they're out there being used or not used, and someone says, hey, it's broken, it'll take you longer to fix that thing. And then you might end up fixing that thing and breaking something else because you haven't got the lineage in front of you. So it's a snowballing effect of things that happen usually usually driven by pace. It's not taking the time to stop and consider what I should be working on and working in a really more modern, efficient way.
Yeah, and I think that really represents probably the number one problem that we see data leaders facing, is that they find themselves measuring with speed rather than value because the demand from the business is so great and their capacity to meet that demand is so small, which we spoke about recently, this concept of the expectation threshold, where the business users typically have a low understanding of the complexities and the challenges that a DNA practice has to build these outcomes, because they're used to just getting some data, putting in an Excel spreadsheet, knocking up a pivot table and maybe a chart, and that seems really easy to them. But the process of building something properly is significantly more complicated than that, and so then therein lies the disconnect. And so business users are thinking about it like a spreadsheet, but not understanding that it's actually a far more complex process than that. And then this tyranny of urgency comes along, and data leaders are desperately trying to keep up with demand, and can't get enough capacity to meet demand. And then exactly this situation that Jared just described, comes about. And so that really is one of the key things that we tackle with a lot of our clients, is to help flip the paradox from speed to value, and bring the business users' expectations more in line with reality through really high quality engagement throughout the process, so that they become educated and aware of what's involved, and in doing so learn and understand more about how things are being done and the outputs that they're engaging with.
So yeah, so on those experiences that the business is having, what do they usually do to solve that problem?
The business users?
Yeah, what patterns do they usually follow to address these kind of challenges?
Yeah, so on the business user side, they usually end up getting frustrated with the lead times and the quality of the output. So they go off out to market and hire their own analysts and do things their own way and build their own cottage industry. And that for us is a really key symptom that we look for and often see, is this loss of control by the data and analytics team and the distribution of capability. And once you've reached that stage, it's very, very difficult to regain control, because, and oftentimes we see organizations sort of latching on to things like hub and spoke. Okay, well, our DNA team will be at the hub, and all these analysts that are sprouted up around the business will be the spoke, and we'll try somehow to connect the two together. But in our experience, that doesn't usually work, because the hub has no credibility or has very little trust in the business, and therefore it's an uphill battle to try and make those connections. And usually that comes about, or we often see that data and analytics teams have and not been able to address the problems tactically. They then move to this model of, well, we're going to build a data model of everything, and present a serving layer to the business, and then give them the tools and then train them to use those tools, and then they'll be able to make their own stuff like they do with spreadsheets. Unfortunately, those data models almost never have all the data that the business needs, and they find themselves wanting. And also, you don't address that last mile divergence. So this is where you get this thing that Jared has described, where you have 6 or 7 different interpretations of customer experience, or 6 or 7 different interpretations of revenue or profit or whatever metric that you can dream of. And so that's why we believe that very tight centralization of the capability in the early stages to really bring in that discipline and that control and take the business on a journey must happen before you then begin distributing that capability out.
Yeah, if you're big enough and your hub and spoke model is hub and spoke of DNA teams, great, because they are going to take the time to look after and follow processes. But if your hub and spoke is DNA is the hub and the business is the spoke, and you expect the business to understand the complexities of what you're doing and be as involved as you are in it, then that's probably a false assumption.
Before we move into what methods you apply to solve these kind of problems, anything else you want to say about what the business, what else is wrong with these kind of approaches, traditional approaches?
I think one big thing for me is these inside out approaches of, data model centric building, or, getting all the data from operational systems together in a semantic layer or a centralized location, assumes that the data is collecting the data that the business is collecting the data that it needs to answer the questions that it has. And again, in our experience, that's almost never the case. Systems are built for operational needs. I need to send a bill to a customer. Okay, I need an address. But then that's the operational need. The analytical need might be, we're also really interested to see who's inside that household. So collecting who else is in that household would be something that would serve an analytical need. And so if a business user has a question of who's in that household, and they're relying on a data model that's been built with current operational system data, then that data would be missing. Whereas if you went from the outside in and said, how are you measuring, progress towards your goals? what use cases or outcomes, are you trying to achieve? Then you'd identify that, household contents is a thing that we want to know. Okay, well, we don't have a process or a system that stores that data. We need to implement that so that we can collect that data and then serve that need. So again, that's why this typical inside-out approach that DNA teams take is kind of built for failure, frankly, and why we're really flipping it on its head.
They just get frustrated as a business because they go, well, we've worked with the team and we still don't get what we want because nobody put the dots together. Okay, you need something else rather than let's just make do with what we've got.
Yeah, that was a great example there about, the insight you need about a household. And if you're being told to just look at a data model, like how do you answer that question? So let's move into like, how do you actually prepare an organization? How do you help them overcome these flaws? And how do you engage?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to what we were saying before, which is just that starting with the goals, identifying a group of users or a group. I mean, we start in a couple of different ways. Our most preferred way is to start right at the very top at the board level and get everyone aligned and educated about what this thing is and what's realistic and what, get some common terms and principles established right at the very highest level. And fortunately, we've had that opportunity a couple times. Next best is at the executive level to do that. And next best is at a business leader level within a business function. And then next best is sort of further down again. The higher up you can start, the better. Because measurement and understanding the progress of the business needs to follow the same architecture as the organization itself. Board, exec, functional leads, teams, individual contributors. The hierarchy of the measurement needs to follow the same structure. And so by starting with those people and getting them agreed and aligned and just spending the time to do that just clears a whole lot of confusion from the outset and gets everyone on the same page. And it enables us then to concentrate our energies in the areas that really count, which is why these projects tend to be called metrics that matter. So pretty much all our clients we've worked with, the project name is metrics that matter or measuring what matters, because we've started with first principles and made our way down. And that enables us to concentrate in the areas that matter. And in doing so, also identify the gaps in the data as we go. And then it also helps inform data management practices. So what data management practices are needed, to fill the gaps or improve quality in areas that count. We've seen countless organizations, aim to execute data management and data governance principles across their entire data estate, not recognizing that probably only 10% of the data that they hold actually counts for anything important. And so by going top down like that, you give yourself advantages in that area too.
And it's also the how we use, or how the business uses what we actually put out. So as a data and analytics team, we're going to create some beautiful data pipelines, and there's going to be some visualization of it, which helps the business user actually make some decisions. But it's not just delivering that as a product, it's delivering, or what we do, delivering how we're going to use it as a company. So there has to be an agreement that, yes, we're going to use these things to make some decisions or to track our progress towards our goals, so that everyone's bought into that process and is then pitching back in with, hey, that was a great version 1, love it. Here's some ideas for version 2, because they've got these specific objectives to get that goal as well. I need a little bit more data. So you get that whole cycle coming back. And then we have a cycle of people actually paying attention on a cadence, maybe weekly or monthly, to how are we going towards our goals, and getting everyone a bit more in harmony, rather than, as we talked about at the start, businesses just requesting new things every week because they had an idea. And ideas are good, but if we want to work together as a company, we need to do most of our ideas towards our goals, not most of our ideas that I came up with in the shower this morning.
Some of the things you're talking about bring up for me kind of a hot topic, which is data mesh. And do you guys have any thoughts on data mesh? Was that important? Is that an architecture that's relevant here?
Yeah, the idea of data mesh and using data domains and data mesh very much aligns with what we do. So aligning is what Cyrus talked about before, is there are parts of the company that you can chunk up into data domains or themes or metrics, finance, people, something about your product, something about the environment. And if we can put the data into those domains and keep them there, so we go down to the bottom, we talk about our data pipelines. That pipeline for people will be it by itself, and you have all the data sources and all the transformations going along, and then any metrics that come out of that can spit out of there. So when we're doing support, if we're in one hub, then we know where to go to do it. If we've gone to a hub and spoke with lots of DNA teams and one of the spokes is people and they just look after people, then it fits really well with owning your data, being responsible for your data, not just the collecting, but the cleaning, the updating, all of those things. And then they become the data stewards. So then when someone else says, hey, I want to change how I do people, you go, okay, well, I go to the people who look after people, and they will make the decision, not me. I won't make up my own rule. I'll get the data owner to do it. So that really helps with us. That sits very well with us. That whole data mesh is definitely fluid, but the idea of using data domains and sticking to that fits very well for us, for sure. Some other things that work for us too. Oh, sorry, to you.
So and matching the business structure, right? Like again, looking at, the customer team, the product team, the finance team, that's how businesses are structured. So data mesh is structured in the same way. So it stands to reason that the two would work together to better serve the business needs. So it sounds obvious.
Yeah, totally.
Well, let's take kind of the final minutes here to talk a little bit about technology. What role does technology play in actually enabling all the things you're talking about here?
Yeah, it comes down to time for us. So Cyrus talked about the expectation budget earlier on. So we need to do everything we can to maximize our time. When I say our time, the data and analytics time, and let's talk about data engineers because we're talking about Ascend. If we can maximize their time in doing things, then we can concentrate more on value. So for us, that's living up the top of the stack as far up as we can. So allowing products like Ascend to automate as much as it can underneath you. So as a data engineer, I don't have to worry about supporting or updating drivers or software. I can just write my declarative queries. Hey, I want to select these things and join these things and filter these things, and then connect them in a pipeline, so I can live further up and deliver more. But also allowing other people, not just technical people, to be involved in the process. So the business analyst who may not know how to write the queries, but they can read SQL and they can understand and they can read lineage. That's great. So if we can live up further up the stack where lineage is automatic for us, like in Ascend, great. They can pitch in. They can also be adding more value rather than going, hey, data engineer, there's a problem. Can you solve it? The business analyst can read it and go, oh, look, I can see it disappeared over here somewhere through the lineage. Here, I'll make my bug ticket. Can you now fix it? So allowing more value to come out and less time wasted on technical debt is really what we try to push towards. It helps us, anything we can automate. If we can automate it, our data quality tests, they're automated. They're in the pipeline. Every time the pipeline runs, data quality test runs. And for us, data quality tests are super important. We put a lot of emphasis into the business rules, hey, the data should be between these values, or the data for 2020 was this value. It can never change now because it's in the past. So any code changes I make can never change that value. So let's put a test in to make sure it never changes. So automating as much as we can.
The thing I like about the automation is that it solves a really important, or it works towards solving a really, really important problem in the market at the moment, which is talent. Skilled data engineers that can do all the things that traditional tools require you to do are a lot harder to find than someone who can look at a ticket, write some SQL and some simple transforms and joins to create a pipeline to deliver an output. With all that automation, it takes the breadth of skills required to be effective as an engineer down a level. In fact, even a good analyst with a decent bit of SQL can perform some of the tasks of a data engineer. which is a really important problem in the market at the moment.
Kind of brings us to Ascend, doesn't it? All this automation and hands-off. Anything in particular you want to say about how Ascend helps you solve your projects?
Yeah, I touched on a little bit there, the single pane of glass, the lineage built in, the automated downstream flow. So if something upstream updates, everything downstream gets it. I can declare my selects rather than having to write upserts or inserts or deletes. There's a lot of automation in the storage behind it, and the partitions I don't have to worry about. The data feed feature, excuse me, is great. That allows me to subscribe to something else that somebody's done. So if we're working in a hub and spoke model, one team can make it, they can publish it, I can subscribe to it, I get all of their work for free already sorted. So that's great. Really helps move us along at pace. It releases our brains from having to worry about it, which is great.
We've done some projects together, or I should say XSY has done some projects with Ascend. You want to talk about some examples?
You got that one, Cyrus?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about one customer, but you're probably better off talking about the nitty gritty. So Ports of Auckland is a client of ours, which there's a case study on our website that we've been working with for a while now. And it's a good example of a client which had, a very, challenging use case around 15-minute refreshes. With a lot of complex data and large volumes of data, the need for operational intelligence. So rather than traditional sort of business intelligence where you're looking to do performance management, which we're also doing, but operational intelligence, presents much higher stake challenge around, the timeliness of the data, how reliable that needs to be in terms of 24/7 availability. And some of the complex transforms that needed to be created to provide the insights needed for the users. And I know that our engineers in there, got a lot of benefit from things like partitions and things like that to really significantly reduce the amount of data that they needed to process to be able to meet that constraint. I'm kind of going out of my depth here, but I do recall talking to one of our data engineers about, trying to do a join on one set of data in the traditional way would have taken, hours to do, but by using partitions, they were able to do it in minutes. So things like that, are basically essential, for us. So we wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that we were doing there without what Ascend does for us.
It was in the way that the whole team got together and could pitch in at Ports of Auckland to then improve that relationship with the business, and that the business is then responding. And as soon as you get them on board and they've got your trust, they're going to push in more and pitch in more, and then you'll get an even better product. So it's allowed our engineers to be more efficient with their time, to get through more and to deliver more value at pace to the business, got more excited, and then they're more engaged, and then we're all winning.
Cool. Any closing words before we go to the Q&A?
No, just to say that we get a lot of value from the automation, and we haven't found another product that can do that for us.
Yeah, there's one thing that we haven't yet mentioned that I thought was worth calling out was, and it's certainly a situation we see a lot of is we're big fans of best of breed. Working with organizations that are focused on excellence in their area, rather than kind of what we call supermarket brand or generic brand approaches to things. And that to us provides two really important benefits. So one is you're getting specialists and experts that work specifically in the area that you need them to work in. So in this case, data engineering pipelines. So you're getting the best minds on the job, and they're there to support you to deliver, excellence in that area. The second one is that it provides portability. So, Ascend works on all three clouds. It supports Snowflake, it supports BigQuery, it supports Databricks, Spark natively. So you got options. You can go where you want and do what you need to meet the needs, because you know that the needs of the business are going to evolve over time. When you've nailed business intelligence, now it's machine learning and data science, and then the data volumes will be going up, and then it's real time, and things will get more sophisticated. So if you can be choosing something that will help you, be prepared for that future early, then you don't find yourself in a situation where you're 2 or 3 years down the track and then you're going, okay, we've got to migrate everything. So that, yeah, we're big fans of that as well.
Cool. All right, well, let's go to the Q&A and see what we got going on. Yeah, Rob asks, this might be, I'll leave it to you to decide. What are some of the key mistakes that organizations make when selecting tools?
Yeah, it can be the back to the speed factor. So, hey, someone's asked me to do something, there's a mess, I need to do it. Okay, let's just pick that one. And you're not taking the time to really do a robust evaluation of tool sets. So, if you want to pick a product, let's pick 3 that internet says are good, and let's make our own decision on what is good based on some success factors, and not just what looked nice, but hey, set some product evaluation success factors of, I must be able to do this, and I must be able to do this, and they're valid reasons that will help you achieve more value, not just reasons of, oh, I can edit more things. It's, you want value of, as a data engineer, I spend less time doing something, or I can spend more time delivering value rather than creating something. So it's just really having those success factors on a robust eval will definitely help you select the tool that's good for you, because not every tool is good for everybody or every use case, but taking the time.
Yeah, I'd echo that, and I'd also say a lot of times we find the events leading up to that situation, right? So 9 times out of 10, the events leading up to a tool reevaluation or a new tool selection is the current tools are falling over, they're not fit for purpose, things are broken, whatever, right? And the natural sort of assumption is, oh, it's the tool, something's wrong with the tool, so we need to get a new tool. And so another big mistake we see is that usually it's not really the tool itself, it's the way that the team is working, or what the team is doing with the tools. So another thing that we always suggest is that if that situation is happening, part of the evaluation criteria creation process would be, right, how are we going to work differently as part of this tool selections? We're working with a retail at the moment, nothing to do with data and analytics, although that will be part of it. The whole project is about reimagining how they do a core function of their business first, and then that will inform what sorts of things do we need tools to do that will then form our evaluation criteria that will then give us a much more robust set of criteria to be evaluating against. And then, the other thing I'd say is that people underestimate the implications of selection. When you select a tool like a warehousing product or an engineering product or a dashboarding product, it will be with you for a very long time. So spending a few months or a few weeks really to properly evaluate a set of tools and really choose wisely is worthwhile given the life cycle of that tool over time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, the next one is from Jackie. Jackie asks, what are some specific technical challenges that you have overcome?
Okay, so there's a couple. One of them is what Cyrus talked about earlier, is using partition joins. So that customer ports has Spark underneath Ascend, and they have large data sets of events coming from machinery and events coming from people. So being able to use partition joins to just join the latest partition, being today or yesterday, so that you can minimize the amount of data that needs to be joined and queried, and then that helped with performance for them, getting the data out. Also minimizes the cost of using Spark. Another would be records from a source system aren't kept, as in you think the source system you're reading from through your pipeline has all the records forever, but for reasons like system is old, has memory problems, has disk space problems, maybe it's run on an old on-prem server, they purge the records every day because they only want it today. It's because all they care about, to Cyrus's point earlier, was operational data. They didn't care about history. So sometimes we've had to engineer something to take that data and put it somewhere and then build up our own golden source. So now we become the golden source of that rather than the actual golden source. You know, there's always a challenge in data engineering for some new way, even if it's just, you know, how do I clean that data? Or even, I mean, it's not much of a technical challenge, but understanding the data, you know, finding the person who actually can describe the acronym or abbreviation of letters that describes a column that no one knows how got there.
Cool. Great. So I got two more here. I want to jump to this next one first from Xiaojing. What are some differences and challenges between Greenfield projects and those with lots of legacy?
Well, the Greenfield ones can just be easier for sure. There's less human involved. And what I mean by that is people hold on to their legacy systems. We're with another client at the moment where there are at least 6 different ETL tools. And they have been there through a course of history of somebody had a project. They chose a new tool. Now somebody at the company, maybe one person only, owns the IP of how to use that tool. And so they've built up this plethora of tools. So having legacy systems in place creates more challenges to align, but can also be easier because you've got this collective opinion of actually it is hard. I don't want to pay for 6 people to support 6 systems. I want to pay for 1 person, or how about almost 0 people to support a system because the system does it for you. Greenfield ones can have their own challenges too. You know, we will come with our opinions on our working with clients, but if the people on the ground with the client don't have a depth of opinion, it can be harder for us to get the right model for them. We can come with our opinion, but we like to do it as a collective and make sure we're delivering the right thing, not just what people at XSY say is correct.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between it's easier to convince a better way of doing things when pain has been felt. Whereas if you've never felt the pain or you never have embarked upon this journey before, then it takes a lot more convincing that, you know, yes, we have to go through all these steps in order to achieve the outcome. But then there's nothing to unpick to do it. So it's kind of, I guess, challenges in different phases. Easier to start in a legacy environment, but hard to finish. But in the other way, you know, the other way around. So yeah, they both have their challenges, but yeah.
Cool. At this point, I got one more on the dock here from Suresh. How does Ascend compare to other existing ETL tools?
You're going to sound like fanboys here.
I was going to say, good way to wrap this up.
Obviously, we use Ascend a lot and we're fans of it. And as Cyrus said, you know, we pick best of breed and at the moment, Ascend is our best of breed tool for this. So that the flexibility to connect to anything, to be able to write our own connectors, to run on the cloud that the client's in, to be able to run in the client's account in the cloud, massive. Great for security. The fact that the data engineers don't have to write code to support or create or manage or scale infrastructure, that's great. And this last one's controversial for me or for other people. I like it. It's the fewer things to twist and turn and change. So I know a lot of data engineers, and I'm an engineer, a lot of data engineers like to be able to configure everything exactly the way they want it. to write down to the second, so they've optimized it exactly for that thing. But that takes a lot of time and energy, and the next person may not understand the complexities, and that may not scale at all. So I actually really like the way that Ascend is quite opinionated in the way that things happen, because then I'm not able to spend more time going down the rabbit hole of, oh, what if I could do this? I can use that and I can change it and I can do this. I can concentrate on, hey, this is actually a very good way of doing it. It's good enough to get me through the value. I can now concentrate on delivering more value to the customer rather than spending a week engineering this fantastical way of doing it 1% better.
Nice. Well, that takes care of all our Q&A. I think we can wrap it up. We'll just do a quick shout outs to the conference coming up in April, to which you guys are going to be doing a session. I'm really excited to hear that there. It's not going to be a replay of this. I've been working with you on that content, so really looking forward to that. Yeah, let's call it a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
And really glad to be working with you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Good stuff. Thanks everyone for joining.
Cheers.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you. Bye.